Hey, this is Professor Triplet, and we're going to see how to set up references. And these are the references that we took during the lecture. So let's go ahead and get into Photoshop and start setting up some references. So for this one, I'm going to just double click on my layer and name this my front. And so that's going to be kind of like my starting off point. And the next thing I want to do is I want to use my guides to kind of draw a cross here through the middle of this object. So I'm going to, if you don't have your rulers out, by the way, just hit Control R in Photoshop and it'll bring it out. And to pull a guide out, you just click, you left click over here, and then you just drag and let go. So left click, drag, and let go. So I'm going to kind of line it up like that. I'm trying to get sort of a center point on my little pot here, and then you can throw a few other markers in there if you want, just to, like I'm doing one here at the top of this little guy, and I can pick like maybe the tallest leaf, maybe right there, and have a marker there. And so now I know I've got this thing pretty well marked off, and I could even go like this too if you want to kind of make sure we get all the other vases moved over in the right space. Do that. And let's do the bottom too. Okay, so when we bring the other references in, we're just going to make sure that the vase lines up and, that it's generally in the center, because that's going to make our modeling from reference easier. So let's go ahead and grab some of those other things, those other textures. So let's go ahead and grab all of these. This one is 70, so I already have that open, so I'll just grab the rest of them. Okay, so I'm just going to click and drag this off so it's floating, and then let me click on my original one. So with this selected, you will get the background layer for it up, and you can go ahead and name it right away if you want to. And looking at this, I want to say this is, let me cancel that. Let me find, I'll actually, I'm going to move this off on a different monitor for a second. Let me find the one that's kind of the opposite of this one. So that would be the back one. So that would mean this little arm right here will be on this side. Let me find that one first. So that's got to be this one. So you can see the tag right here is on the opposite side. So we want that one. That'll be easy to mark that off because that's back. Okay, so we'll say that's the back one. We'll just name that right away. And we can just hold shift and drag that into this other document that's behind here. And we don't need this anymore. We can just close it. So this one I can just hit close. It's going to ask me if I want to save it. I might as well. Why not? So say OK. And so now we can see this is the this is the new layer that we just brought in. And you can see how the pot's a little bit off. So we're just going to drag that pot back over here. Maybe you can use your arrow keys to move it pixel by pixel if you have your move tool out. So I've got this move tool, which is V on your keyboard. So if you've got that out, you can just go ahead and click your arrow keys, or you can hold Control. Alternatively, if you have another tool like a marquee tool, but you hold Control, you can see your move tool actually toggles on and off. So once you hold Control, you can go ahead and use your arrow keys to move around. So we're just going to get this thing so it's generally in about the same spot as the other one. Just pretty close. It's an organic object, so it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. We just want it to be pretty close. Okay, that looks good to me. So let's get the next piece. So we've got front and back, and then let's see which this one. Those are the top ones. So let's drag this out, move it over here, and I cannot see the that little this little guy right here, kind of like the stubby one. So actually I can. It's, now that I look at it a little bit closer, it's right back here. So that's rotated to the back. So that would mean that we were looking at that. I believe that's the right side. let's see if the, oh wait, this is the back though. So yeah, I'm trying to picture how this works in 3D. You know what? I'm not going to worry about it too much. If I get it wrong, I can just rename it in Maya. So I'll just go ahead and say, if it's on here and then it goes rotating to the back, and this is the back, then, and that's the front, that means that, okay, that would be the left side. Let's call this the left. All right, took me a second to picture it. So I'm going to hold Shift, drag it in here. I'm going to look at my setup here, just make sure I move this into its right place, like so. Just try to get it, I'm trying to get the pot within this area, and then I can close this. Might as well save it. Keep that layer name. And then the last one is the one I pulled off screen earlier. That's this one. Same thing. So this is going to be right, obviously. Like so. And I'm just going to drag that in, hold Shift when you do. Doesn't really matter that much though, because you're going to move it anyway. So okay, so when I drag this one in, look at that, it came in almost perfect. So let's just move it down just a tiny bit, like so. There we go. Okay, so now that we've got all these here, we can hit Save, Control S, or Control Shift S. Let's hit Control Shift S, and let's change it to a Photoshop document. So we'll call this Bonsai, I don't know, 3, because I've done some other ones. Say OK. Now, question is, do I need all this space in here? And I would say not really. So let's go ahead and bring our crop tool out. You just hit C on your keyboard. And if I come up to the corner and I hold Shift, I can actually start cropping in and it'll stay the square aspect ratio. It'll stay whatever the original aspect ratio was. I'm not going to use this vase, so I'm not really worried about the vase being in the picture as much. I just really want the tree. So I'm just going to move everything around, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit Enter, and I'm just going to check and make sure I didn't cut anything major off. I'm okay with a little bit of that leaf being cut off because that's not going to really make a big difference in the big picture, because we model the leaf separately as separate pieces. So we'll just go like that, go like that. That looks good. That looks good. So everything's good. The only thing we lost was like one little tiny leaf over here, but I don't think that's going to be the end of the world. So we'll just say that's good. And this will make our file size smaller and just easier to deal with. So so another thing I want to do is that if I can, I would like to make sure that this object is actually built in real world size. I like to do that from the beginning if possible. And so what I'm going to do is, since I have the plant sitting next to me and I have a ruler right next to that, I'm going to pause for a second, measure this thing, because I didn't do it before I started recording, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. Well, I found out it's roughly about 30 centimeters from the dirt up to the top of the plant, the topmost leaf. So I'm going to make my reference plane like a little bit bigger than that, maybe like 35 centimeters or so. So let's get going. So make a reference plane here, and we'll call this 35. And then I'll make sure it's just 1 by 1. Okay, I'm going to jump back to Photoshop now, and what I didn't do was I didn't save these out yet. So let's go ahead and save them out. So just Control-Shift-S will be save as, and I'm going to save them as a JPEG, because as far as the reference goes, I don't need to worry about how big they are. Or how, I should say, how quality they are. So I'm okay with a compressed JPEG. So I have my right on top. So I already, you can see I have some here already. I'm just going to save over these. So there's one. And that's the left. just saved this. This should have been the back. I forgot to hide it. So let's go like this, back. That's what I meant to do. And then this is the front. Okay, there we go. All right, we got all those done. And one thing we're going to do in Photoshop eventually is we're going to get a texture from this plant. So I am eventually going to find a spot where I'm going to actually make a tileable texture from this. And that will be a different video that will come right after this one. So for now, let's get into Maya and set up these reference planes, and we'll have that part done. Okay, so we made our single plane. And if I go kind of looking from the top, you can see my Z directions right here. And that's really important because we want to make sure that we have the front facing the front so we don't get confused. Okay, obviously this is a top-down view, so we're going to need to rotate this so it's facing front. And the way you need to imagine this is that the x-axis goes like this way. So if this was like the axle of a car, we would rotate the wheel, you know, on this x-axis if we wanted to see this in the front. So basically, I just come to the X in my channel box, dial in 90, and then we'll have this facing the front. One other thing I like to do whenever I'm doing references like this, I will actually move this a little bit off center, and that's so that I don't get fighting between the geometry or curves or anything that I'm going to draw in the front view with the model. And the same goes for every, with this plane. So the same thing goes for any of the planes. So I'll move them a little bit off center so that you don't get what's called Z fighting, and that's where the polygons or the, you know, curves that you're drawing are occupying the same space as another polygon. So now that that's moved off center, we should be, you know, pretty good to go with that. So let's go ahead and go assign new material, and we'll make it a Lambert. And this is kind of watch, rinse, and repeat. So we just go ahead and say m_ref_front. Grab your front texture, like so. And hit 6 on the keyboard if you don't see it. Now, let's go to our front view. Okay. I'm going to actually set this thing up so that the base of this will be about right there or so. Let's see. Yeah, I guess it can go right there. That's fine. And yeah, that'll work pretty good. And so now what we need to do is just make extra planes and then rotate them and get those in with the right texture on them. So the other thing we're going to need too, though, is because these are culled, we're going to want to turn off the backface culling. So we're going to go to display, and we're going to go to polygons, backface culling. So now from the back you don't see it, but from the front you can see it. Okay, so now when I go ahead and duplicate this, Control D, I'll just go ahead and bring out my rotate tool. I'll hold J for my snapping, and I'll just snap this into the right view, move it a tiny bit off center, and then we'll make another material for this. So we'll just say assign new material, Lambert, m_ref_right, and then we'll just go ahead and grab that texture that we need for the right view. Okay, so you can see how this thing right here, like this little piece right there, is right there, so we know we're on the right track here. Okay, no pun intended, the right track. Control D, duplicate this plane. I'll move it over a little bit just so it's off center, and maybe a little bit less, like that. And then hold J, rotate it 90 degrees. Kind of lose it for a second there, but now we have to make another material for this, assign new material, Lambert. Let's get that file in there. So we go left. There we go. Now this is a little bit off to me, so I'm okay with taking this and like kind of moving. I think I got the wrong one selected. There we go. I'm okay with kind of moving this more towards the center as far as the pot goes. So I'm going to just kind of do that. I'm okay with that. Same thing with this one. Just move this over a little bit so we're kind of hitting right to center. And that one looks pretty good. Maybe just a, oops, don't have it. So what's happening is I'm trying to select it, but it's being blocked by the one that's Backface called out. So because there's actually two of them right here that are really close to each other. So you can see they kind of flicker back and forth. There you go. Now you can see both. Okay, so we just need a back one right here. Control D and hold that J down. Let's see. Did we get it? No. Too far. There we go. Okay, now this one I'll move just over this center line here. Yep, there we go. Okay, so then this one we will also go in and assign a new material. This is the back view, Lambert, file, and back, of course. And let's just move this, make sure I select it. There we go. Okay, so now if all things are good, this is the back view. If we look at this, yeah, you can see like that little piece would rotate that way, so that's right. And yeah, I think we're doing good. Okay, so let's go ahead and save this. And we will call this, go up one, we'll call this Bonsai 3. All right, so that's pretty much it for this. I'd put these in layers as well, just to make sure that you can hide them individually if you wanted to. Name them, of course, you know, like geo, put a G, ref, underscore, I'm assuming this is the front, it's the first one, and so on and so forth. So that's the rest of this one. So thanks for watching, and we'll pick it up in the next one where we will tile a texture in Photoshop.